Hello, everyone. Scotty White of World Combat Sports. Good evening. Welcome. You know what is about to happen? We got to talk about the fight weekend aftermath across the spectrum and also touching on my title topics. We want to talk about the legend himself, Kobe Bryant, briefly. It's been all over the airwaves, man. It's a big deal. The ultimate tragedy happened. Him, some colleagues, and his 13-year-old daughter and another family, everybody on board, basically all nine perished in a helicopter accident in Calabasas, California. um Kobe Bryant was heading to a basketball game with, for his daughter, a team he coaches, and also her best friend. So going on a private chopper. We can speculate a lot of things, but the investigation is still ongoing. Many people were talking about how dense how foggy it was, the canopy and everything. It may not have been fit for flying, or may not have been safe visually. So therefore, it may have caused the chopper to hit a downward spiral and crash on the side of the mountain. You know, um, a big part of me is like in denial in this whole situation, because I just don't see Kobe Bryant. You know how you don't see certain people passing away even though it's happened? Like, it's a lot to this puzzle that just doesn't add up. Kobe been basically, coaching the basketball team, a female basketball team, after his post-fight NBA career, where he just about established whatever he needed to do to consider himself top two, top three easily. 5 championships, 2 gold medals. The man been doing it. You know what I'm saying? Um, the the comments and everybody reflecting upon it, I believe it's been more so positive feedback rather than, the negative, posts that you've been seeing on the threads. And you're going to have that. That's the kind of society we live in, people. You can't stop it. We're in a society where you can create accounts on social media and just about be whoever you choose to be. But not to get too in depth about the good and the bad. But when it comes down to it, I believe Kobe as a person did more good than, reflecting on his settlement for that potential, you know, um, litigation that he had to experience outside of the court. You know what I'm saying? The basketball court. Ultimately, man, salute to the OG, legend of basketball, Kobe Bryant, man. I can't imagine the phone call that she had to receive, his wife, Vanessa. I just can't imagine his kids having all girls, and, one of their siblings was with dad. You know what I'm saying? And the chopper crashed. I just I lost a kid myself. I know how that is to get the phone call, and they was from a much larger family, but the backstory to that family is much different than the regular or the average family that go through life. And Kobe Bryant touched a lot of people, man, just from his career on the court. Joining the NBA straight out of high school. The man is an absolute legend. Him visiting the Ruckers. I mean, Kobe Bryant, man, he was himself. And not only that, when him and Shaq split, he had to prove to people that he can win a championship without the imposing figure, one another dominating player of the NBA, Shaquille O'Neal. He had to prove to people that. And you compare him and LeBron James, the way they came into the NBA. That one incident, people wanted to vilify Kobe Bryant for a long time. You know what I'm saying? Um, when you're talking about off the court, they want to vilify him, but more so they did vilify him to the cross when him and Shaq end up splitting. And there's been stories said about why that happened the way it did. They was trying to say Kobe Bryant may have said this and that. I'm not going to get into it. It's not the proper place to speak on that. But I'm just saying in general, I'm glad they was able to mend broken wings, come to a cordial um, reconciliation, so to speak, and they got over it. But initially when I heard it, man, it seemed like it was fake news to me. And I'm saying, what is this going around? Kobe Bryant passed away in a chopper. And at that time, the news reports haven't quite surfaced yet. There's still a lot going on. They didn't have any details. They just know Kobe Bryant, Kobe Bryant. So when you highlight the celebrity out of the equation, me as media, I definitely have to wait till other sources come out. And sure enough, they was able to identify and verify that Kobe Bryant, the first, the highest tier that was out of the nine, of course, the most notable name. I'm not saying he's any better than anybody else that perished on the ride. I'm just saying to the public, to the audience, to the basketball community, to the athletes, that's what the media was going to put out first, Kobe Bryant. And I salute the OG, man. That's a bad way to go. If anybody ever rode in a chopper, when those things hit a hard right, hard left, or you get turbulence, it's a different type of feeling. And that chopper was much smaller than the ones, that I rode in the military with the cargo netting. I can imagine what was going on when they started to plummet because they were spiraling out of control. And with 9 people in a closed area like that, it's just unbelievable what the last seconds of their life must have meant before they hit impact and it blew up. It's just not to read into, because I'm gonna tell you from experience, like if you're in a tough enough situation where you see death in front of you, you black out. I remember when I was running bikes back in the day, I was riding a stand-up wheelie next to my family. And when I brought the bike down to go into a curve, the bike went into a tank slapper. It started vibrating real bad. And then that was crazy. Like, that usually don't happen when your bike is set up the right way. But I think the speed I was going was a little bit fast for me to bring it down, and it went into a shake. All I remember was a truck that was in front of me, and that's it. Like, that's what I remember, a truck in front of me. And when I arose from face down in the grass, I briefly saw, when I went up in the air, I briefly saw a bright light. Like, I blacked out right before I was going to hit the truck. And when I awoken and I was face down in the grass, at that moment, I did see a light. I saw the light for real. It was a craziest moment. Like, when you get to near death situations, your body will sometimes shut down because you're in a you're about to, you have somehow being forced to commit that you no longer will be living, because the situation that you're currently in is detrimental, it's dangerous, and it's fatal. And at that time, when I was running up on that truck, it was going to be fatal. I have no idea at all, except the story that was given to me by the ex. That's the only story that I have a recollection, because the rest is, I thought I was in the back of a truck. I thought I was about to impact the truck. All I remember is that big white truck in front of me. And then the bike hit the curve. Whatever happened, I don't even know how I was ejected off the bike. But I told her my motorcycle. I was flipping in the air from what she told me. I landed. But during that time when I was unconscious, I was knocked out. I just saw the light, man. It was weird. So for Kobe, then, man, I know it was mad chaos on there with that chopper just spinning around and spinning around. And to be honest, being that they didn't have a huge um sight of vision out the front, I'm thinking that what's going on, Dion? Salute, man. Thanks for dropping in. I'm just thinking that a lot of people really didn't. I don't know, man. They might have been huddled up together. It might have been some of them that blacked out due to the what you call it um when it starts the spiral. I don't want to say the downdraft, but it's a momentum to take you. You can get dizzy real quick when an aircraft is spiraling out of control like that. It can sometimes happen when you're rappelling too, but I'm not sure if they were still conscious, all of them. But if they were spiraling out of control into such a fatal situation, sometimes your mind will shut down. Like when you close your eyes, you would never know you're dead. If you know a situation is about to happen that you can't control, your mind will shut down and you don't even know if you're dead. You just know that you're about to face the worst condition ever in your life, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's it. So if you awaken, you awaken. If you don't, you don't. But when your mind shut down from the projected impact or the projected fatal situation that you're currently in, you never know if you die or not. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened to them. When they was spinning out of control, a lot was going on inside that chopper. And man, prayers go out to them, man. I can't imagine what that's like, being in California next to a mountain and spiraling out of control, man. Dion said true responsibility media, true responsible media, tailspin. Yes, a tailspin, but I'm talking about when you internal to the cabin. It's something that is called like a G-force. It's somewhat like an internal G-force that it crushes. It can cause your body to fold from spinning inside a chopper. Because in the military they made hard rights, hard lefts, and they send you in a 360, and really it's neck breaking. Like it sits you down. You know what I'm saying? And this is with the engine running and everything. So I can't imagine what it was like just for that chopper to spin out of control the way it was. Because we got helmets on, backpack payloads, and we getting dropped off in the LZ. And when they cut those corners hard, man, your neck sit down. Like you sit down in your body. That's crucial. Ellis Hahn, what's good? Salute. Thanks for dropping in. I believe it's the pilot fault. That's true. Never shut your eyes. Yeah, man, that's true words right there, man. I'm not sure if it's the pilot's fault or culpability, but at the present time, man, they doing an investigation to see if it's the pilot's fault. That's what they're doing right now. You know what I'm saying? If it is the pilot's fault, unfortunately, someone wants the finger to be placed in a direction where it can soothe the hearts that are grieving right now. So if it's the pilot's fault, there's no way that it's going to be some type of reprimand. He perished in the accident too. And I can't say pilots don't make their own decision off experience. You can get complacent just going through the routine all the time, going through the routine. Oh, I can do it. I can do it. Believe me, I've had military pilots who has that mentality, and they'll tell you, I can fly in anything. You know what I'm saying? They'll tell you point blank, I can fly in anything. I was just talking today. I had a classmate that I grew up with from high school. He ended up being one of the best combat. He holds the record for the most combat missions. He used to fly the stealth pilots and all the combat planes. Me and him used to run hurdles together. You know what I'm saying? I was amazed that when I was going in the service, I knew he was going in the Air Force. And we used to talk about which service was better and this, that, and the other. But yeah, he ended up making multiple combat missions over there when we was pushing over to Iraq. It's amazing. Ellis Hahn said that is what makes it hard for a pilot to be blamed because he's also gone. And the caveat of what Ellis said was that in the process of them doing the investigation, it was no distress signal. So it's many areas of assumptions that we can go with. If it was no distress signal, the pilot may have been in such a dire need that he really couldn't send a distress signal, especially the way it looked looking at the video. I mean, that chopper wasn't that big and it was just spiraling out of control. So it might have been absolute chaos. I know it was absolute chaos inside that chopper. It was absolute chaos in there. It was probably bodies on top of bodies before it even hit the ground, because that's what happened when the internal downforce, that's the word I was looking at, the downforce, somewhat like the G force of being inside a cabin. I can't imagine what was going on. I know I keep saying the same thing, but I sort of can, being in the chopper, and I can't, because that was a much smaller aircraft. And being that the pilot didn't send out a distress signal tells me that he was probably trying to save the aircraft. Knowing who he had on board, he was trying his best to the last moment to save that aircraft, man. He was probably holding on to the steering wheel as best as he possibly can to pull that back up. That's the only assumption I can take off that. But man, it's tough, man. It's tough to even imagine. I mean, just to visualize the phone call she got. At first, they were saying TMZ put out the report before the family was even notified, and then they changed it and said the family was notified about 25 minutes before TMZ put out the notification, the broadcast that Kobe Bryant was had died from the accident. But I appreciate the input, though, for those of you that tuned in. Dion, Ellis, I appreciate it. So it's been all day with his teammates and everything. They've been talking. It's just like being in the service, really. You have a band of brothers in basketball, baseball, football. You have a band of brothers. And for the years that Kobe Bryant played all the way to his retirement, of course, it's going to be some players that look back on it that played with him that's very, very extremely emotional about him passing. They was able to battle against Kobe. They was able to see him, rise and ascend to greatness and stardom in basketball. So I understand why so many people are hurt. I was listening to Ice Cube. I was listening to McGrady. Just a lot of basketball players that had the opportunity to ball out with Kobe. Kobe being Bryant, So that's all I have to say on that. Prayers out to his family. Real talk. Ellis said, why I said it's a pilot fault is because there was a fog near the mountain and it probably blocked the view. I remember when I used to watch airport TV shows, they stated not to fly at fog or smoke when they know this first safety precaution is weather. I can't disagree with that narrative because, fog does impair the vision, especially to a pilot. Unless you in an aircraft like an airplane and there's no mountains around where you can fly above the fog. But in a helicopter, it's not going to happen, especially with them flying near mountains. It's very tough to even make the decision to say, I can make it through here when you're flying. That's a no-no. People tell you all the time, if you can't see in front of you, you shouldn't be flying near a mountain. But I'm not here to make any speculatory or outside my range of media reporting or any sources that I have not obtained myself. I can't make any, assumptions or speculations like that. But Ellis, I do understand what you're saying. And them flying around a mountain like that, it just isn't smart. It isn't showing your professionalism as a pilot to even go in that direction, to go in that environment. You know what I'm saying? With the people that you had on deck, Who knows? We don't know the conversation that was going on. All we know is he was en route to a basketball game for his daughter, and her best friend who played on the team was also on board. And you had a husband and wife that was there, you know, and their kid. So you lost a whole family on there. Yeah, the husband, a wife, and I believe their daughter that was also on the flight. I'm gonna move on to the next man. Appreciate all the input, Ellis. Appreciate that. I want to talk about the situation that's been going on with Stephen A. Smith and Joe Rogan. As you all know, that Cowboy Cerrone, he lost his fight with against Conor McGregor, right? So I've been trying to explain, like, for my channel, to be clear, like with my channel, I speak about boxing and MMA. And it may not grow as quickly as other channels that strictly talk about boxing or orientated around boxing, because boxing is more of a generalized sport to speak on. It deals with the left and right, both hands, and it deals ultimately with the thought process of the individual executing the punches and striking. So when it comes to mixed martial arts, it's just a whole nother breakdown that you have to itemize through experience to know what you're looking at, to know what is exactly going on when it's on the feet, and especially when it goes changing levels and when it hits the ground. It may be three levels, but internal to those levels, it becomes so technical. It's a sport that you have to watch over and over again because it's constantly evolving. Jiu-jitsu, as we know it from Japan all the way to the Gracies going over there and learning it. And a lot of people believe BJJ was the inception, but it's not. They just was some of the pioneers that was able to bring it to the forefront when it came to competitive combat sports. They was one of the ones who was a part of the first UFC, but also you have to understand it was a Gracie who put it all together. Also, the only fighter that was at the UFC one was Horse Gracie, and he was wearing a gi. Reason being is they was there to strictly take over and introduce Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And they did that by wearing a gi. At that time, was utilized for choking and submissions and everything else. And a lot of fighters that came in there, they didn't have on a gi. They just had on a regular outfit because they was uninformed, uneducated, untrained about what jiu-jitsu really was. And not until Horace Gracie was going in there fighting guys outside his weight class. Every fight in UFC 1 was catch weight. I missed that because it proves that a guy can weigh less than you, but if the skill level was there, he may indeed be able to defeat the fighter. You know what I'm saying? You had some huge guys in there weighing 80, probably 100 pounds plus more than Horace Gracie. And he was able to go in there and get the job done. But anyway, Joe Rogan, who's been immersed in freaking the Ultimate Fighting Championship for years, okay? Stephen A. Smith has been in journalism for years. Two different genres of athletic reporting, all right? Stephen A. Smith deals with the team effort. The team effort, in a sense, is, you can take your producer notes and you can go there and actually see them play as a team. No specific person, unless you have a superstar, you can report. But a lot of guys that may be starting five, the general public don't know about the entire starting five. A lot of what you see in basketball reporting is reporting on the most notable players that's in the starting five. And you can watch a basketball game from television just like you can combat sports, but it's much easier to report on a team effort than it is for an individual effort, because the format of basketball in my opinion, is way more simpler than that of combat sports, especially mixed martial arts. You can report on boxing because when it comes down to boxing, unless you switch up the narrative and make it more exciting, you can't say the same thing over and over again. You land the left, you land the right. Oh, what an awesome combination. It is a firefight. Create space. Oh, the fight is resetting. He's turning the fight out the corner. It's just certain reciprocated, repetitive language that you can use for boxing. But it is still one of the most globally known and popular sports in the world today. It's the hurt business. But when it comes to Stephen A. Smith transferring over to mixed martial arts, for whatever reason, they're trying to switch it up. I will always give this fair warning. I know you're trying to get some fresh faces over there, and you're trying to get some notable top tier names that speak on combat sports because it's going to bring more ratings. And I like it. You know what I'm saying? The UFC has to keep the ratings, keep the attention tuned in. So they bring over Stephen A. Smith, who, when it comes to his lane of talking about basketball, football, and all those team sports, he does talk about boxing on his radio. I have to give him credit on that, y'all. I have to give Stephen A. Smith credit for speaking about it on his podcast, his radio show, or what have you. I will, because boxing, in a sense, to me, for you to learn it as a fighter and then go compete is much more difficult than us from the outside peeking in through the window, observing, taking notes, and then regurgitating that in a way that the media audience understand. Okay, that's simple. What Joe Rogan was saying is often experience that happened when Stephen A. Smith was at the fight, UFC 246. And Cowboy Cerrone is one of the most winningest mixed martial artists in the organization. And when I say the organization, the UFC is considered the top tier organization of mixed martial arts. And then neighboring that is Bellator. So when the main event finally came up, a lot of people, not me, okay, but a lot of individuals was very eager to see Conor McGregor get back on the winning streak. I told you about his legendary run, how he defeated Dennis Silver. He went then defeated Chad Mendez. Then he finally stepped in there with Jose Aldo at featherweight, knocked him out in 13 seconds. Then in the process of moving up from featherweight to welterweight, he faced Nate Diaz and was subbed. You know what I'm saying? RNC, rear naked choke, submission after incredible fight. And take that second round. Okay, I got to get some get back. And this is what's crazy about Conor McGregor fans, right? Ellis say, by the way, who is your favorite UFC fighter? Okay, I get to that just in a minute. Good question, though. What I could say about Conor McGregor fans is that when he loses, you still hear people out there cheering as if he still has a plethora, like a reservoir of credit that he can keep running up the losing tab on. Like, people will absolutely cheer Conor McGregor in a loss. You know what I'm saying? So he goes up there and face Nate Diaz at 170 at welterweight. Nate Diaz, an OG, the one who was basically getting it in, talking that trash, talking that talk, him and his brother Nick, long before Conor came in, right? So he loses. And then they had a rematch. So in the rematch was a little weird to me because Nate Diaz seemed like he was dropping a little bit too easy. You know what I'm saying? He was just dropping down on those two knockdowns a little bit too easy than what he was taking from Conor McGregor. And then come to find out, Nate said he was trying to bait him in to go into the ground with him. And I can see how a lot of mixed martial artists they attempt to, if they jujitsu is a strong point, like Nate is one of the best boxers in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, hands down. He's one of the best. I used to say Frankie Edgar, you know what I'm saying? But we talking about hands. Nate Diaz has some of the best hands. His brother Nick has some good hands. So for him to take it down and try to drop as if he was being knocked down, Connor didn't bite on it. He didn't take the bait. He kept it standing because he knew what his strong point was. So he was able to avenge his loss. So after that, he dropped back down to lightweight 155, and he stepped in there with the underground king, Eddie Alvarez. And Eddie Alvarez has won a championship belt in every organization he's been in. Most notable, one before UFC was Bellator, and then he went to the UFC, and he was able to pick up the lightweight championship. Conor McGregor stopped him in the fourth round, I believe, via punches. Eddie is known to get dropped. He is known to get touched. That's nothing new. He's a tough dude, but he's taken he's taken a depth of impact from glove to jawbone, chin, everything. He's taken some punishment. I can't say he a punch dummy. I can't say that about Eddie Alvarez. I have mad respect for the underground king, but it would be good if he worked on his defense early in his career, and so he wouldn't wear the fight so easily, because he has so much scar tissue. Reminds me of freaking Rafael dos Anjos. So many fighters that bleed easy. Even Nate Diaz, he bleeds easy. But moving on. Ellis said Conor fans are the equivalent of Diaz bros, delusional fans. McGregor stole Canelo's star power. Stipe Miocic is the best boxer in the UFC, period. I would have to agree to a point, because with Stipe Miocic, I have to look at the way he was knocked out with DC, right? And I look at how Nate Diaz is able to keep distance. Look at the way he handled Michael Johnson. Look at the boxing mastery that he put on Michael Johnson. And Michael Johnson has hands, but Nate Diaz outboxed he boxed Michael Johnson's ears off. Nate Diaz, in my opinion, has better hands than Stipe. But Stipe, in my opinion, is much more fundamentally gifted due to his boxing background. But the only time I really seen him use his defense was against Francis Ngannou. Smart. Stipe was able to elude. He was ducking up on the punches. I was like, cool. Stipe is showing he does have that solid defense. But somehow with DC, man, coming out the clinch as a boxer with experience, he should have put his dang left hand up. He should have answered the phone, put a high guard. But Daniel Cormier, you let him hit you with a right hook at drop Stipe. You know what I'm saying? It just was conduct unbecoming from a guy who actually has boxing experience. He's one of the good guys. I like Stipe, a fireman outside the cage. I like the dude. You know what I'm saying? I like how he carries himself as a fighter. And I truly, man, his boxing skills came out. Not to get off the subject, though. I got to get back to Stephen A. Smith and Joe Rogan. But goddamn it, when I started talking about mixed martial arts, it's just all the records start to spin. That's how it is, man. Period. When he changed up the game plan, just like Henry Cejudo did against Marlon Moraes, when he changed up the game plan, the offensive strategy, and I'm talking about DC was having some solid success against freaking Stipe. Stipe changed up the fight plan and started digging to the body. Did you see the hooks? Could you feel the hooks when he started digging in DC's body? All those Popeye's chicken commercials DC was doing. Stipe said, I'm about to take an order. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to give you what I came here. He started digging to DC's body, man. It was beautiful. He started to slow DC down. He kept at it. And then he was digging with that left hook. Kept digging before it really started to show effect on DC. DC started to backstep towards the cage. Stipe pressured the right way. He didn't get impulsive and rush in. But that's when Stipe's boxing, his mindset took over. And I respect that. I appreciate that about the how he changed it up. The same thing with Henry Cejudo, a gold medal wrestler who went in there and tried to get the flyweight championship, failed, came back nearly 2 years later, and then became champ by knocking out TJ Dillashaw for the bantamweight title, right? He went in there and broke down Marlon Moraes systematically. I got to get back to Joe Rogan and Stephen A. Smith, though, y'all. Man, when it comes to boxing and MMA, man, shoot, when the record started to spin, I start to freestyle for real. But Stephen A. Smith talking the way he did about what Joe Rogan said, it's a lot of discrepancies that Stephen A. Smith has when dealing with what he said on that day. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot that you can take from him dogging out an experienced fighter like Donald Cowboy Cerrone. You know what I'm saying? Stephen A. Smith isn't experienced enough. You know what I'm saying? He isn't experienced enough to go head up with Joe Rogan. It just isn't smart for him to say, I have a radio, I'm on ESPN, I'm with Max Kellerman. Now, Max Kellerman, he can do it all day. But take a gander at this for a second. All right. I want you to listen to this.
Already he had Cowboy grabbing him in the clinch and slamming him with those shoulders. That was unexpected. And I've never seen anybody do it that effectively. He slammed him in the nose, and you saw Cowboy's nose bleeding immediately as soon as they broke.
So you see how Joe Rogan is layering and breaking it down, peeling the pages back to the visual for those audience members that's tuning in. He's telling you what the process was. Even though it was 40 seconds, he's explaining to you what the shoulder strikes were. He's explaining to you how Cowboy reacted.
Already he had Cowboy on the back foot. Then he starts marching forward. He lands that head kick. Conor had Cowboy basically done within the first 15, 20 seconds.
Steven, stunning? Is that even, can you say from Conor McGregor's a stunning win?
Listen, I'm shocked and disappointed. I thought Conor McGregor would win this. I thought he would take him out in 2 rounds. I thought that obviously he's been knocked out. Cowboy Cerrone's been knocked out 6 times in his career, the last 2 times. So I knew he had a questionable jaw, and coming in there and swearing that he wanted to strike against Conor McGregor, I thought that he was right there to be had. So I expected it to end in round 2. I didn't expect it to end in 40 seconds, or as you just said, Joe Rogan, the first 15 seconds. Conor McGregor misses with a haymaker, catches him with the leg, but that wasn't a big deal. But the clinch, the shoulder clinch, and then hitting him 3 times, not 1, not 2, but 3 times, he was pretty much done then, just like Joe said. So 15, 20 seconds in, you're seeing Cowboy Cerrone, who was the bigger guy,
right?
Okay, the bigger guy coming into this fight, be done in like 15 to 20 seconds.
So check this out. What you just heard, Stephen A. Smith is using what's called smash mouth media, right? It's a lot that you can critique from the results. All right. That's what Stephen A. Smith is used to. It's a lot of what he's saying is producer notes. He's talking about how many times Cowboy Cerrone's been knocked out. He's talking about how many losses he has leading up to that fight. He's just going through the routine of producer notes. That's what he read. That's what he's used to. And he's going on script right now. He really hasn't said anything to break down the 40 seconds that he's disappointed with. How can you be disappointed about a fighter that you really don't know any type of history of? You haven't followed Cowboy Cerrone. You really haven't followed Conor McGregor except him stepping in the ring with Floyd Mayweather. You know what I'm saying? So what he's doing, he's using smash mouth. He's just running it down the middle, and he's he's giving you his criticism of the results. And it's easy to say, well, guess what? Cowboy, I didn't expect Cowboy to go out this quick. He's the much bigger fighter. What does size have to do with it? And they're fighting in the same weight class. They're fighting at 170. What did the scale say? From my understanding, Conor weighed in at 170 and Cowboy weighed in at 170. So you're not going to overly hydrate and be up to middleweight or light heavyweight. And Cerrone, it's not like he fights at this weight class, a welterweight, all the time.
I mean, I don't think he landed a single blow against Conor McGregor. It was like shadow fighting, for crying out loud.
So Stephen A. Smith said he doesn't believe that Cowboy landed a single blow. He was shadow fighting. For the banter and language within the MMA community, especially, and boxing, they would refer to that as shadow boxing. Now, a lot of people will say, okay, you're being petty off dialogue and language. I'm not being petty, because when you cross over and you want to start reporting in combat sports, at least have the terminology set down to the point where you can reverberate it out to the audience in relation to what you are reporting on. When it's basketball, it's basketball. Baseball, baseball. Boxing, boxing. And mixed martial arts and boxing has some of the same traits when it comes to sparring or shadow boxing, but not shadow fighting. And blows, that's just a simple commonality. Blows, like, tell the fight fans, tell the audience what exactly happened. If he didn't land a blow, Cowboy did land. You can't say a kick and a punch is just a blow. You have to say if it was a punch, what was it? Was it a straight? Was it a hook? Was it an uppercut? Was it to the body? Was it a kick? If it was a kick, was a calf kick, mid-level, high kick, spinning kick, whatever the case. Let me continue.
He landed one kick to the arms, and that was basically it. The consensus was the best way that he was going to be able to win was to keep distance and perhaps use his wrestling. Right. Try to take him down, try to grab his fight to the ground, and wear Conor out, because Conor's so explosive and dynamic.
Joe Rogan and his analytics are absolutely 100% on point, as they should be, because training at 10th Planet, my fault, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, it's one of those deals where it took Joe Rogan, of all people, a long time to be promoted to his black belt, while under the professor himself. Look him up in 10th Planet. Look up his jiu-jitsu competitions. Joe Rogan is very knowledgeable of mat time, of experience of martial arts. Not just sitting back from the window, tune in. There's no way Stephen A. Smith has the prowess of his years of reporting to come up and brush shoulders with Joe Rogan and hold the mic and attempt to emulate years. Just like Joe Rogan can no way come close to brushing shoulders with Stephen A. Smith on ESPN, Skip Bayless, any one of them dudes. He would just get eaten alive. But when you cross over, when you decide to jump outside the perimeter of your expertise and go over to combat sports, and we're not talking about just boxing, we're talking about mixed martial arts. You are totally out your lane. And what Joe Rogan did, he just basically said Cowboy landed a right high kick. He did land one kick, right? In a not so abrasive way, he corrected Stephen A. Smith on the air politely.
A lot of those guys, like those fast twitch guys, you can wear them out.
Joe Rogan just mentioned fast twitch. Fast twitch is some of those guys who can respond immediately. Now, you might be saying fast twitch and boxing, this, that. It has to do with the mental coherency, the omnipresence of awareness of these fighters, right? And fast twitches like Edson Barboza, he's one of the most dynamic kickers in the game right now. Like his reverse heel kick is just amazing. Like I used to think Vitor Belfort had, but Essen Barbosa is, I would say, the best when it comes to fast twitch. And once again, Joe Rogan is analyzing it from a different perspective of experience. This is his domain of knowledge and experience, and he's really working over Stephen A. Smith and the guy to his right because he is the Nostradamus in this particular area.
And then the muscles fill up and then they slow down in the later rounds. That was the whole.
The other thing is this. Listen, you can't avoid being happy for Conor McGregor. He's great for the sport. When he wins, it elevates the profile for the sport, unlike anybody else in the UFC. We get all of that. But the flip side to it, coming into this fight, Cowboy Cerrone had a reputation for not stepping up in the big moment. Now he's been around.
So Stephen A. Smith is talking about Cowboy has a reputation for not stepping up in the big moments. But if Stephen A. Smith would actually knew who was on Donald Cowboy Cerrone's record, okay, his record, he would know that Cowboy's frequency in the game of mixed martial arts has been absolutely a legendary run. He has no indication of no history or anything about who and when Cowboy Cerrone has faced. So that's why he's just talking. You know what I'm saying? He's just going off notes. That's it. Cowboy Cerrone record is 36-14. Let me just give you a brief summation from 12-6. Okay, let me start from 6-12 actually. Check this out. 2015. No. Let's go back to 2014. All right. I'm not going to go down to Jim Miller, even though I respect him and his brother. Let's start off with 2014. Eddie Alvarez, 24-6. Win. Miles Jury. He's supposed to have been an upcoming top prospect, and he faced that loss against Cowboy Cerrone. Just outperformed. Cowboy was shining. And then Benson Henderson, man. Come on. We done seen Benson Henderson. He's taken his defeats and he had his win. But one thing about Benson Henderson, if you look at his fight against, I think his name, Robert Hatchett. I forgot his name. He was much more bigger than Benson Henderson. And Benson put on a display. It was amazing to watch. Then he went up to John McDessie, who another prospect on the rise, a solid name to have to the resume. This is still 2015, right? Okay. He's supposed to have faced Khabib Nurmagomedov, but the bout was canceled. This is still 2015. We had 1, 2, 3, 4 fights in. Okay. The Nurmagomedov fight was canceled. This is the fifth fight. Rafael Dos Anjos, 2015, December. He lost. Then he's supposed to step in there with another solid prospect, tall, lanky striker, Tim Means, canceled. Then he steps in there with Alex Oliveira, was really coming up the ranks and doing fairly decent. He subbed him with a triangle choke. Patrick Cote, one of the hardest hitters in the sport, a stand-up striker. He got a win over, you know what I'm saying? Cerrone beat Patrick Cote in 2016. Third fight of 2016, Rick Story. Very tough. Look at the replay. Look at the highlights of the combination that he put. 3-punch combination. He went to the body, came up top. Look, he went 2 to the body, came up top with a left hook, and followed it with a left kick. Very high level striking. Finished Rick Story in round 2. Next, 2016 again. High frequency, right? Canceled bout with Kevin Gastelum. Then the very next month from that bout, we're talking about he was in training camp November 2016, canceled bout. December, he's in there with Matt Brown. Come on, man. He finished the man in the 3rd round. Head kick. These are top tier names. Now he started to step up in 2017 to some more rising stars, man, some veterans. And It may be the frequency that he was in fight camp, but he faced Jorge Masvidal, lost round 2. And then he faced Robbie Lawler, one of the legends they consider in the sport. Out of the Matt Hughes. I don't know if they still friends, but you know, his ascension in the sport was Matt Hughes in 2017. And then Darren Till. He lost to Darren Till when Darren Till was on the rise. You know what I'm saying? Before he stepped in there with the Tyron Woodleys. You know, we already know it was a joke with him and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. But when he got crushed by Tyron Woodley, and then the very next fight got crushed again, that just exposed what he needed to work on. But Cowboy Cerrone lost to Darren Till. He turns around and faced Yancy Medeiros out of Hawaii. You know what I'm saying? One of another rising stars in 2018. He won. Then he steps in there with Leon Edwards in 2018. The history between Jorge Masvidal has kind of fizzled out, but he's supposed to be another rising contender. He lost a decision to Leon Edwards. And then we all know Platinum Mike Perry. All right. Donald Cowboy Cerrone almost ripped this man's arm off and took it to the morgue for the rest of the body to get there when he finally dies. Seriously, he put it on Mike Perry. And then he stepped in there with Alexander Hernandez in 2019. And then Al Alaquinta, the same one who went the distance with Khabib Nurmagomedov on short notice. Very tough fighter. Cowboy won a decision. Then it gets very, very difficult. Check this out. Let me give you some dates. 5/2019, he wins against Alaquinta. 6/2019, he steps in with Tony Ferguson. Tony puts a beating on him, really. Round 2, that's when Cowboy reached up to his eye, or he blew his nose. And you know, when you got a swelled eye, you don't supposed to blow your nose. So he reached up and blew his nose, and his eye swelled shut. And he couldn't see. So they stopped at round 2. That's 6/2019. 9. Check this out. September 2019, he steps in with Justin Highlight Gaethje. If you look at him in the neighboring organization before he came over, Justin can fight. And Cowboy lost to Justin Gaethje in round 1. Justin put the heat on him. Seriously. He was relentless. That's what he does. It was his Achilles heel, and it is his saving grace. It depends on who it is. And then in 2020, you know, only having 4 fights in 2019 now. I said only being sarcastic, but he had 4 hard fights in 2019. And he steps in there in January 2020 against Conor McGregor. Thanks for your patience. Let me continue.
Around for a long time, most wins, most closes, we get all of that because he finishes the job. When he wins, but when he's lost, remember, he's never been a champion. They talked about that.
So Stephen A. Smith talking about how Cowboy's never been a champion. You know, same could be said about Nate Diaz. You know, it's some dudes in there that are considered elite fighters, but they just can't pick up the chip. But to Cowboy Cerrone's resume and credentials, he has fought some of the best. It's a weird game because you can have double-digit losses on your resume, but the names on your resume in mixed martial arts, still, they kind of praise you. You know what I'm saying? They kind of clap it up and give you that respect for the fighters that you've been in there with. It's weird because boxing, if you have that many losses, people look at you and frown. You know, but in mixed martial arts, having a record like Cowboy Cerrone, what Stephen A. Smith is talking about, he never, won a championship. It's not the same as in boxing. Once again, he's just going off producer notes. He's reciting the play.
This was his first pay-per-view event ever. He said
it wasn't his first pay-per-view ever. Stephen A. Smith is kind of lacking on his commonality in doing his research. I mean, because like I said, he's on ESPN, he's on point. He knows what the hell he's talking about. But this was not. Cowboy Cerrone's first PPV. It might have been the first PPV headlining, but he's been on PPVs, a lot of them, enough for Stephen A. Smith to do his research a lot more thorough than he did.
It's the biggest fight in his career.
So here's what I'm thinking. The lights might have been too bright, Joe.
This man, I got mad respect for Stephen A. Smith, but he's just really making himself put on the makeup, the big nose, and the dang fluorescent colored hair. He said the lights may have been too big. That is default. You know what? He's coming up with default punchlines that he may have in reserve. The lights may have been too big for Cowboy Cerrone. Let me refresh your memory, Stephen A. Smith. 36 wins, 14 losses. The most recent coming by Conor McGregor. How many fights will you see across the board in mixed martial arts with that many fights? 4-ounce gloves. Over 45 fights. And you're talking about the lights may have been too much? That's absurd, man. Do better.
The lights might have been too bright. We have seen that from fighters from time to time. Those bright lights shine down upon you, and you just ain't ready. No matter how much experience you have, you don't have that.
See, Joe Rogan is smiling. You know what I'm saying? He thinks it's a bit comical. And it is comical for Stephen A. Smith, first and foremost, to be talking about some fighters. You have to be specific on named fighters on the level of Cowboy Cerrone if you're going to say the lights may have been too big. You have to give us a comparison. You need for us to be able to link it up to who are you talking about, some fighters. Combat sports has been around. Well, boxing has been around for decades. And we all know when the UFC started in the 90s. So when you talk about too bright, Joe Rogan is basically smiling in an insidious type way because Stephen A. Smith is going to the one-liners, talking about Cowboy Cerrone. The lights may have been too much. You cannot come back with a video, Stephen A. Smith, after saying such like that.
That experience, you just ain't ready. And that's how it looked tonight. Cowboy Cerrone just didn't look ready.
He wasn't ready for the way Conor McGregor started. That is for certain. You know, oftentimes in sport, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. We haven't seen Conor McGregor in the octagon in more than 15 months, hadn't won in the cage in more than 3 years. What did it say about his comeback, not just to win, Joe, but to be at the top of his game so quickly after that layoff?
Well, his preparation, and I was aware of his preparation. His preparation for this was rigorous.
See, Joe Rogan just said he was aware of Conor McGregor's preparation. That is being embedded. That is what media seeks to do. If we can get inside the fight camp and lead up, if we are granted that exclusive access, it's just beautiful. It improves and educates you on seeing a fighter in a different light. You get to see them training for the big fight. You know what I'm saying? Any fight that they're going into, you get first-hand knowledge, man. You get to visually put pupils on this, put the lens on them. And that's what Joe Rogan has said. He had firsthand. These guys to the left and right flank, you know, they're rambling off numbers or producing it. They haven't been sitting in freaking fight camps. They haven't been in the gyms where it's sweat everywhere and it's funky and all that. They're just going off producing those, man.
He prepared for years. He wasn't just coming back and then doing a 6-month camp. He had been training MMA as hard as he was in training camp the entire time. It's just he didn't have the opportunity to compete again. And when he focused himself for this camp and got ready, he didn't focus like a guy who has $200 million in the bank. He focused like a guy who's starving. He focused like a guy who's trying to regain his.
So you get the picture of where I'm trying to go with this, Stephen A. Smith. You know, Ellis say he's speaking. Hold up for a second. Back what I was saying, let me go back in some of these comments. Let's say no, it's because DC was being dumb. He actually thought he beat Stipe easy, so he doubted him. That is true. He stopped Stipe in the first round. Great card on Thursday night. He's speaking of MMA like it's boxing, and that's the ultimate mistake for Stephen A. to do what he just did with Joe Rogan. You know the way he went about it. I'm just saying this. There's a lot of discrepancies in his recall memory because he is going off notes. He is basically um, recalling, going on his recall memory of what he has read and read and read. Now he's in front of the mic, he's reciting it. And okay, that has a lot to do with media. I'm not gonna lie, you can have that process down, know a fighter's record, but beyond the record, you have to understand what exactly is playing out to the results. You have to know more than it was just shoulder strikes. I mean, you have to know more than just criticizing Cowboy and saying he folded like a tent. You know what I'm saying? That's disrespectful. And what I can say about the MMA community is, it's not going to be too many times that they just look at this and give Stephen A. a pass without going on social media and trying to freaking tear him apart. You know what I'm saying? They're going to be deeply interested in what they call that. You can call it a bit of targeting, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Like they say in football, targeting. They're going to be. I don't want to use the B word, bullying, but they're going to be targeting Stephen A. Smith for a long time, like they're doing now about his words. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna send out a torch lit parade to try to make up stuff about Stephen A. Smith, and it's very little to go on, but the little bit that's out there is huge. He just put out a video of him doing some mitts. I, I I'm assuming that he believed it would be cool for him to do that. You know what I'm saying? But in his worst judgment, he never ever should have did that because he looked terrible. Stephen A. Smith looked terrible. I mean, they call it nut punches with a freaking skyline, freaking shovel right uppercut hook, whatever he had going on. But the mitt, you could at least obtain with all that money you getting paid now, Stephen A. Smith. You could at least obtain a prominent freaking mitt holder or a coach that gets you right for the vid. They would have gave you a couple of lessons and sharpen you up and then put you in front of the camera and made you look every bit of something to talk about out here. But you got the worst dude. You got Uncle Leroy. You know what I'm saying? You got Uncle Leroy, man. Dion said Daniel Du Bois and Joe Joyce, April 18th. I'm looking forward to that one. After Wilder versus Fury. I get to that right after I finish up with Joe Rogan and Stephen A. Smith. So Stephen A. Smith basically came back with a retort in the video. And he said he was absolutely right in what he said about Cowboy not being ready, folding like a cheap tent, or whatever he said, and basically criticizing that Cowboy Cerrone wasn't ready. And that's far from the truth because Conor McGregor is a skilled striker. Conor McGregor has improved big time since his fight, since winning the championship. Believe it or not, what he has is power. Conor McGregor undeniably has power. What he is lacked in and what he's getting better at is his jiu-jitsu, his ground game. And you can tell his takedown defense is sharpening up real nice. He's becoming real thorough with that. But his only downfall right now and the hole in this game of mixed martial arts is when you face a fighter like Khabib Nurmagomedov that has persistent pressure. Conor McGregor needs a lot more than just having takedown defense. He needs to know how to set up. He needs better transition. He needs to work better on keeping distance, not to be put in that predicament, or he needs to learn how to work off his seat or his back against a top heavy sambo champion like Khabib Nurmagomedov. He needs to know how to get himself from B to A. That's getting back to your feet. And Conor McGregor still is currently working on that because hey, Khabib was able to scoop him up, sit him down several times. What I can say, Conor McGregor was able to win a round. You have to salute Conor McGregor for constantly improving. Now, for Stephen A to say he didn't learn a damn thing from a 40-second stoppage of Conor McGregor, it was a lot to be learned in that. Cowboy threw that kick. Conor McGregor blocked it slightly, caught it, and then he returned his own left high kick. He somehow damaged Cowboy's orbital. You know what I'm saying? And he was able to land some punches, even though the flying knee didn't connect wholeheartedly like Jorge Masvidal did to Ben Askren. It was effective enough to distract Cowboy, who was already hurt. It was a lot to the process from start to finish. His shoulder strikes wasn't anything new. He just was able to do it easily against an opponent that you wouldn't be able to see other fighters get in that close on Cowboy Cerrone and land shoulder strikes. It wasn't anything super special about it, but it was Conor McGregor, so they bloviated. So Stephen A. Smith challenging and saying, Joe Rogan, give me a time and a place. You cannot come on Joe Rogan, one of the most experienced, one of the most informative podcasts out there. We're talking about general topics, or we're talking about mixed martial arts. Joe Rogan podcast is one of the most elevated earpieces that you would want to tune into. The topics of discussion that he speaks on, very respectable. So for Stephen A. Smith to go over there and compare mixed martial arts to basketball analogies and boxing and all this other crap, no. Joe Rogan is going to calmly put you in a position as if you're a white belt on the mat. That's what Joe Rogan is going to do to Stephen A. Smith. You cannot fake jujitsu. You have to go practice and put in the mat time in order to learn the techniques. There's so many areas for Joe Rogan to put Stephen A. Smith in. It would be like a white belt walking in there with a black belt like Joe Rogan and saying, let's roll. He would get slaughtered. Whatever talking point Stephen A. Smith want to talk about, he may be a good debater, but we're talking about mixed martial arts, my friend. We're talking about an area of combat sports that you have to page. You have to read line for line and how they're setting up different transitions. What's going to lead to this? What do you need to do if you're on the bottom? What can you set up on the top? It's a lot that's going on to the mastery of jiu-jitsu. That's why I attend these tournaments so I can educate myself. Because from the outside looking in, like a lot of people saying, how can you speak on a sport if you never really stepped in the ring? It's simple. Just like football coaches, you know what I'm saying? Using the Stephen A. Smith, just like football coaches, they can observe the sport and learn the sport of football and coach it. Media, we can speak on the sport through observation, but it comes a time where we have to just close distance, enter into a gym, witness, put in the groundwork, talk to the fighters, talk to the trainers, and know what the hell we actually looking at and understand it. Yeah, you have to do that for boxing, any martial arts. You have to do that. You have to learn the terminology. You have to know what the terminology actually means in execution. You have to visually put eyes on it in repetition to know what's actually playing out before you. So when you get in front of the mic, in front of millions, you're just not saying, well, Cowboy Cerrone folded up like a cheap tent. It was just horrible. You can't do that. It's unprofessional in a way. Outside of his producer notes, he was lost. And yes, it'll be good for ratings. But what a lot of mixed martial arts fans is going to take offense to is that Stephen A. Smith was acting like the ratings um, put in higher numbers, were able to calibrate higher numbers since he was on the show. And one thing you can't do is say, well, I'm Stephen A. Smith and I'm coming in here and I'm much more important than Joe Rogan. Come on, man. You know how many people have been listening to Joe Rogan to the end of time? You know how many people know and have been on his show? You know how many different topics of general studies in the world that he speak on? Yeah, I know basketball is global. I understand that. But we're talking about two different talking points, two different mouthpieces when it comes to media. I would hold true to my game that more people know Joe Rogan than they do Stephen A. Smith. That's not even a debate. That's not even a debate. I know that Stephen A has this grit about him. He wouldn't be where he is if he didn't. When it boils down to you stepping through those doors to a Joe Rogan podcast, man, and you believe that you want to enter the maw of darkness, the belly of the beast, you want to be a Sumerian in broad daylight when you step in there with Joe Rogan and think you're going to actually have the understanding and the expertise to have a conversation with him about mixed martial arts? What the hell are you doing? You don't ever want to do that right now in this point in time until you actually learn the sport and you're able to talk about it as it is playing out. Not, oh, so-and-so look like trash. Oh man, Cowboy, that blow really hurts right there. Oh, his nose bleeding. Oh man, Conor McGregor's rushing in. Wow, he looks sharp. That's not mixed martial arts. You really have to understand what's going on. What happens when they go to the ground? What happens when they level change? What type of technique are they using? I just don't advise Stephen A to step in there, being that he's the highest paid out there right now in his area of expertise. I believe it should behoove him to just put on the seatbelt and, have some sidebar conversation, really get schooled up by Max Kellerman, who would say, listen, Stephen, you're my boy, okay? But you really shouldn't go over there and talk mixed martial arts with Joe Rogan. Max Kellerman would tell you that. We're talking about Max Kellerman, one of the grand poobahs when it comes to freaking talking boxing, man. Combat sports. Why aren't you seeking the guidance from Max Kellerman, who sits across from you there, Stephen A. Smith? Be smart. You're an intelligent human being. You're one of the most profound sports analysts that's out there. You have did your due diligence over time. You put in the work. Ask your man, Max Kellerman, is it a good idea for you to step in Death Valley? I'm not being sarcastic. I'm just telling you, you way outside the realm of all of what you've been experiencing and researching throughout your career. Your resume is absolutely superb and commendable. But when you cross over to a sport where you have to go through the technique by seeing what is actually going on and identifying the setup for a submission, the actual submission, and getting it right and understanding what happened before the submission, the process of them working for the submission, during the submitting process, and if the fight ends, why was the fight stopped? Did the fighter, was he unconscious? Did he tap? Did the referee decide to stop it? You can't just say the fighter gave up. Cowboy didn't give up. Conor McGregor was delivering punishment, and he's supposed to look out for the best interests of the fighter. Cowboy didn't give up. Nate Diaz put a whooping on Cowboy, and he didn't give up. But that's all I got to say. Stephen A. Smith, just buckle up and stay in your area. Just relax, do more research before you step over there with a polymath like Joe Rogan in the mixed martial arts game. Just understand that you are absolutely and dearly respected, and you have earned every bit of what you have just been blessed with, is being one of the highest paid that's out there in the game for ESPN. And nothing but a salute, a grand salute to you. When it comes to transitioning, changing lanes over there and providing analytics, you know what analytics consist of. You need to work on your raw data. You just can't sit up here and give an endpoint to what you just seen and do smash mouth reporting. You just can't shove it down our throats and say, oh, he folded up like he quit. He gave up. He dropped. I expected him to take Cowboy out in 2 rounds, this, that, and the other. How can you say that? And also one thing Stephen A. Smith said that was absolutely wrong. He said that we seen Conor McGregor in an exhibition bout with Floyd Mayweather. It wasn't an exhibition bout. It was a professional fight. It happens in boxing a lot with an 0-0 record. So you have to understand that. His bout over in Japan, Ohio gozaimasu, he was in there with Tenshin Nashikawa. That was an exhibition bout. Arigato gozaimasu. So we're going to leave that right there because it was a lot of discrepancies in your post-fight analysis. You definitely have to do better when you come to the mixed martial arts game because they have a close-knit community over here. They will basically vilify Stephen A. Smith if he returns to mixed martial arts and continue to dog their fighters. It's a basically different appetite that these mixed martial arts fans thrive off of. Believe that. Different than boxing fans. Mixed martial arts fans, I'm serious. They're a different type of breed. And you think Stephen A. Smith won't walk up in there and get booed? Did you see what happened in Brazil? Have you seen in Mexico? Like, you think Julio Cesar Chavez was getting, drink thrown on him? No, try being in a mixed martial arts community, a fan base. Anyway, to boxing, Daniel Du Bois and Joe Joyce. I know a lot of people been waiting on Daniel Du Bois, man. He's a young gunner in the game, man. They've been looking at him to step up in competition. Joe Joyce, he's still trying to get his popularity out there. I believe this is going to be really a breakout fight for one of them. Because if Joe Joyce can go in there and put on a superb performance against Daniel Dubois, then, the boxing community, who is very, very spoiled, might take interest in really gravitating to either one. You know what I'm saying? Especially if Dubois is stopped or defeated, because it's high hopes for Daniel Dubois. Seriously, it's high hopes for him, man. It's a lot of people depending on this guy. I'm gonna look at the fight card for that. So just a little bit of info on Dubois: 14-0, 13 knockouts, out of the UK. And he's coming off a KO victory over Fujimoto. Dubois has a lot to prove besides being this up and comer next big deal in the heavyweight division. It's going to take a lot more for you to establish yourself amongst the heavy hitters, period. And him being 14 and 0, I like how they moving this kid. You know, he's only 22 years old. Y'all have to understand that. He's very young in the game. That's going to be a changing of the guard, believe it or not. Dubois is going to be a part of the change of the guard. When Wilders and Furies are on their way out the door, you're going to see fighters like Dubois and freaking Joe Joyce and all them, you know? Right now, of course, they're not going to get the respect that they deserve because they still on the come up. They still trying to get their name out there in recognition. Joe Joyce, on the other hand, isn't. He's not in a good place to be a part of the changing of the guard because he's on a fast track. Joe Joyce is on a fast track. Seriously. He might be 10 and 0 undefeated, but he's 34 years old. Time is not on his side. He's 12 years older than Daniel Dubois, and that's a problem. We can say, well, experience. What experience? We can say grown man strength. Hey, this is boxing. And neither one of their resumes is something to sit up here and present high praise. You know, he stopped Bermain Stavern. Okay. You know, Bermain Stavern haven't been the same since Deontay Wilder. And then his last fight was against Brian Jennings, which a lot of people felt that it would be a solid fight from Jennings. But he made it to the 12th round. You know what I'm saying? And on the scorecards, Joe Joyce was 115, 112, 118.09, which is a freaking blowout, and then 117, 110. So, you know, like I said, Daniel Barr, he's going to be a part of the changing of the guard, man. If he remains undefeated and he doesn't go in there and become a part of a minor upset from Joe Joyce, then okay. I truly think deep down inside, I believe that Dubois, in my opinion, being that he does have youth on his side, and I believe he can go in there and potentially stop Joe Joyce from looking at his other fights. Joe Joyce's other fights. That's what I believe. But it's not a fight that I'm totally tuned into. What's up? But my fault, people. But that's my take on that. I really want to hold on for a second. But you know, I really wanted to talk about the Jerry Hurd fight this past weekend. He's getting a lot of unnecessary criticism, of course, because they was trying to say that, you know, he didn't look as exciting. And it's easy for us, the media and the fight fans is on the outside looking in to say that because we used to seeing him in there fighting like he did against Eris Landy Laura. You know what I'm saying? We used to seeing him go in there and be the unified champion, defeating Tony Harris and Austin Trout. You know, his loss to Julian Williams, he still was knocked down, but he finished the final frame against Francisco Santana. Listen, he went the distance with a guy that a lot of people was basically saying he should have did much better against. Looking at the scorecards, it was Larry Hazard Jr. 97-92, Julie Leatherman 99-90, and Kevin Morgan 99-90. Now, to Jared Hurd's defense, he said he was trying to work on some things that they had worked in training camp. Whether they was trying to pack away some rounds and see the fluidity in what they worked on in training camp, we don't know. It's easy for us to say, well, he should have went in and knocked him out. Well, if he went in and knocked him out, The criticism is going to be, well, we didn't see any improvement. We just don't know if he really improved or not because he knocked the dude out in 2 rounds. So you're going to hear people saying he fought a bum. He fought a fighter that didn't supposed to be in there with him. That's the criticism from both sides that he's going to get. It's a double-sided spear, man. You know, pick your death. Death by judgment. So he goes 12 rounds with a guy, and they say he didn't look as spectacular or sharp than we should see Jared Hurd, but I commend him for going the 10 rounds the way he did. He went the distance, and it's only a matter of time before he probably take another tune-up or he fights somebody of recognition in the rankings, and then we'll see him potentially back in the title shot. We don't know who it's going to be against, but Jared Hurd is in no way, shape, or form a bum. No way, shape, or form has he fell off. So y'all need to get off this man just because he took one loss. Like y'all giving him the business just like you gave Julian Williams. The man actually got up and finished the fight. Y'all treating this man like he ain't nothing. And Danny Garcia versus Red Koch, it just goes to show you some of these names that we're unfamiliar with. They show up to play ball. They show up. And we all know Danny Garcia, how his fight game is. Come on, man. It's no surprise. It's no surprise, man. I like Danny Garcia. His reputation speaks volumes on who he went in there, his resume, his credentials, his reputation in the sport of boxing. You're going to run into some of these fighters that go the distance. You can't consider yourself a knockout artist just because you have a win streak of 2 to 3 fights that you're dropping cats. And then we're gonna break that down and scrutinize it and say, okay, who was the opponents? Just like Stephen A. Smith was saying that about Cowboy Cerrone. He said, oh, he's been stopped 6 other times. That's the same with boxing. When you knock out an opponent that's never been stopped before, it has extensively much more value in the holding cell than opponent that's considered a soft touch or one that's with less experience any day of the week. Dion say should have gotten old boy out of there. Hey man, that's our mentality, Dion. We always say that. We say, oh man, we should get him out of there. That's our language, man. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you've been a unified champion. But then if you take the performance that he had against Julian Williams, right? And he didn't take the immediate rematch. So we're saying he should got old boy up out of there. What if he would have? Then they would have said Santana, man, he should have never been in there with Hurd. That didn't prove nothing except Hurd took an easy one. You know, when you reach a certain level, taking an easy one is out the window now. That's why they have the magnifying glass on Gervonta Davis now, Devin Haney. Not so much Teofimo Lopez, but you know, Vasily Lomachenko even. They're gonna scrutinize. We're gonna scrutinize who they step in there with. Dion say in the championship rounds at least. Hey, I can't deny with that. I can't deny that, man. You know, it's all about if he was really trying to work on what they were teaching him, or you know, adding wrinkles to his skill set inside the gym behind closed doors, you know, to improve so he can make that run next time. Dion say they treated my boy Laura like dirt after Hurd too. I was heated. Yeah, Laura, man, he's one of those guys. You have to look at the fights, some of the fights he had before Hurd. I mean, he had a couple that was sleepers, but when we talking about him and Hurd, God damn it, man, it's no way you can tell me that anyone should have been disrespecting Erislandy Laura after that. Like, he really fought. That was a damn good fight from Hurd just marching forward and Landy Laura boxing his ass. It was a solid fight, man. It's one of those fights that you can always replay. You can go back and watch it and say, damn, look at how he got dropped in the late rounds. He got up and he still was throwing punches. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't running. He wasn't turning around and fleeing the scene. And that's how boxing is, though. They spoil, man. Boxing fans are spoiled. They are quick to criticize a fight if they take a L. It don't matter what they did up to that. If they used to seeing you on top, they're gonna say stay on top. When you take a L and just say in that L you got dropped like Jared Hurd, how quickly fans just say, nah, he ain't the best. You know what I'm saying? Just like Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua was dropped in Klitschko fight, and people's like, they're not looking at it because he's a UK fighter. He's the golden child. But then you have to look at how old Klitschko was and why is Anthony Joshua being dropped. But they just want to praise that he stepped in there with a legend, Brother Fatali. You know, they just want to glorify that and it being in Wembley Stadium. But when it comes to these fighters this day and time, and they used to being in the presence of the rankings, the top tier rankings, they're going to always receive the worst criticism. They can be undefeated. Just like Tank Davis, he's still undefeated. But they was giving him backlash and venom all because he went 12 rounds, even though he stopped Yuriorkis Gamboa in 12th round. Just because he went 12 rounds with the fighter who's allegedly hurt in the second round, they're not even thinking about Gervonta Davis stopping him in the 12th. It's the fact that he was able to usher a 12th round into the equation with a 37, 38-year-old fighter. That's the problem with the fight fans are talking about. Like, why did you allow Gamboa to go? What you was expecting? Like, come on, man. We're talking about a multi-time world champion. What were you expecting from Gamboa? Just to go in there and lay down? He's not that dude, man. He's a Cuban fighter, man. Olympian, come on. That's boxing fans, though, man. I did too, Dion. I thought Laura did enough to win too. I mean, he was boxing beautifully off the back foot. You know, he was really feeding her on the way in, feeding him. He was feeding him, man. He was giving him a lesson in certain pockets of the fight, just like Julian Williams. It's just Julian Williams was able to keep it exposed and not allow Jared Hurd to gain any type of momentum. Erislandy Laura just wasn't strong enough to do that. Julian Williams was on that night. Ellis, I believe Gervonta chose to go 12 rounds with Gamboa. Nah, I was there, bro. Nah, he didn't choose. He was landing some brick makers on Gamboa. Look, he was unloading the clip. Gervonta said his Glock don't have a safety. Gervonta was unloading the clip on Gamboa. He wasn't trying to go 12 rounds. Don't even get it twisted. I can in no way know how I can let that slide. Gervonta was going in there from the opening bell trying to like annihilate Gamboa, send him to the freaking hospital for early night so he can go out there and jump in his Bentley truck, Bentley SUV or whatever, and ride out to the after party. But Gamboa showed unbelievable resilience, man. The shots that he was taking, oh my God. Look, it's not the fact that Gervonta Davis he doesn't have power at 135. He got power. It's just freaking Gamboa, man. People can set the bed, put it to rest. You know, whatever's going on with the year that he went in there and faced Crawford. We don't know what the team was like. It's a whole lot that's going on with that jambalaya. But what we can say leading up to this fight, he had a solid team. He had a solid camp. And he took some hellacious amount of punches from Gervonta Davis. They was brutal. And like I said, Gamboa showed that he has a chin. he does have 2 years left to be competitive. I would say 2 years. I can't say too much after that, but he has about 2 years. You know what I'm saying? I was absolutely impressed with the way he took those punches, those power punches from Javante, and he finally got broken down in the 12th round, and the referee called the fight over. Gamboa's size of his chin is like a car number, a car bumper. I mean, that was the first fight that I seen Gamboa up against a heavy-handed puncher like Javante Davis. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't really compare when he went in there Crawford. Like I said, he was off, and then he came back to fight. Not to take that away from Crawford, but Gamboa, in a sense, was in there with a young heavy hitter like Javante, who can bang. And from the opening bell, Javante was in his chest. Seriously, he was hitting him in the body. I was surprised at how he was taking those punches. And the good thing about Gamboa, yeah, he said he was going to take Javante to the late rounds and drown him. And he took him to the late rounds, and Javante was, he was fluttering a little bit. You know what I'm saying? He was, how they call it, dog paddling. You know what I'm saying? The current was a little bit fast, and he was trying not to drown out there. He was trying to stay above water. He had to get that extra breath. That's why you heard Calvin Ford talking to Javante. He knew he was a little bit exhausted, but he wanted to, put that energy, inject that energy back into him and tell him to get back in the game, man. Listen to what the corner was saying, because Javante, and in some areas of the fight, he wasn't really paying attention to what his corner was saying. Ellis said, what do you think of Ryan versus Javante future fight? If you look at the way Ryan Garcia looked against his early opponents, he wasn't using the jab. He was just trying to use his quickness, use his speed on the counters. And it was bewildering, to say the least, that a highly touted prospect in boxing that will someday be the face of Golden Boy, just like Canelo is right now, right? That they wouldn't teach him to work behind the stick. You know what I'm saying? They wouldn't teach him the basic fundamentals of combinations. And Ryan Garcia was just trying to do hook counters and work off like he was on the reaction bag or something. Him facing Javante would be a good fight. Just like they saying Vasily Lomachenko would be a good fight with Javante. I mean, even Devin Haney. Ryan Garcia is still to be, for him to step in there with Javante, I doubt De La Hoya will make that happen, because it's a lot of areas he's still green in and he needs improving. I don't know, man. Javante get on the inside of Ryan Garcia. Can his chin handle that? Because it's no way you telling me that just because he stopped Donald, that he's going to go in there and stop Javante. I'm telling you, when Javante lay that glove to rest on the chin of Ryan Garcia, it's going to prove two things: if he can take a punch or not. It's going to be like, can Ryan Garcia handle the power of Javante or not? Because to be honest, I don't think Ryan Garcia can hurt Javante. And may he have more hand speed? It depends. Because that mitt and reaction and all that, that's cool for the cameras. But can he handle the punching power of a savage? Javante, he is a freaking shark smelling blood in there, man. He's a hyena. He's a lion. He's all of the predatory beasts that you can think of when he's in the ring. And he gets his opponent hurt. Man, Javante does not hesitate. That's one thing. You can say what you want when he's in the media and the way he's talking or whatever. I'm talking about when he's on the hunt and he's closing in on his opponent to finish. He goes in wholeheartedly to do that. Straight destruction, demolition. That's what Javante does, man. He's a savage when it comes to finishing guys. And can Ryan Garcia handle that fury? Dion said Golden Boy is crashing. Absolutely. They got something going on over there. Seriously. Dion said Tank versus Lomachenko would be worse than the Salido fight. I tell people all the time I believe Javante can stop Vasily Lomachenko. A lot of people will nod their head left or right and say, nah, he don't know what he's talking about. But that's what opinions are. We assess what we've seen so far. When he was dropped by Linares, a lot of people say, "Oh, Lomachenko was dropped," but I'm like saying to myself, like, what do you expect a fighter to start degrading after having an extensive amateur nesting bed to where he at in his professional career with the limited amount of fights? And people's like, "Oh, he's doing this grand standing, coming into the boxing arena and winning the championship in 3 fights." But you have to understand he's a double gold medalist. So the time that he should have came into boxing would have been much more to his detriment than coming in when they chose to. He came in when the door was ajar and they peeked in and said, "Oh, this is clear." And then they ran into Salido that was hiding around the corner. Salido was like, "No, homie, it ain't that easy. Let me show you." He run into Javante Davis. The fight isn't going to be easy. Look at how Vasily Lomachenko looked against Luke Campbell. It don't matter if he dropped him in the later rounds, the championship rounds. Look at how he fought the Olympian Luke Campbell, tall, lanky fighter. But Luke Campbell had his moments. Do you think Luke Campbell can go in there and defeat Javante? Hell no. Hell no. Did Vasily Lomachenko look extremely impressive in that fight? Not in my opinion. He won a vacant WBC title, but to me, he didn't look overly impressive. I'm just curious to know if he, once again, 135, will he be able to handle Javante's power, and will Javante be able to handle the agility and versatility of freaking Vasily Lomachenko? His movement, his ring generalship, his craft. It will be a good fight for sure. It will be an absolutely good fight. I hope it happens. But right now, we got to look out for Teofimo Lopez and Vasily Lomachenko. That's going to be the fight potentially in April. They just trying to decide out what venue is going to be at. You know what I'm saying? Y'all stay tuned for that. But hey, I'm up out of here. I've been here long enough. I'm going for Teofimo. That's who I'm going for, hands down. Anybody who's listened to my lives, I always believe Vasily Lomachenko is overrated up to a point of all the praise he was getting. Just like when I was saying Jim Lampley on HBO was hyping up freaking Gennady Golovkin, and people didn't believe me. I'll say, man, Gennady is overrated. The opponents he's facing and his skill set. And guess what? When Daniel Jacobs exposed it and shut down that 23 fight knockout streak, people want to get quiet. I always thought Vasily Lomachenko, in my opinion, was a bit overrated for all the hype behind his Olympic pedigree and moving into the freaking professional ranks and the opponents that he faced. You just can't keep on talking about waters. Javante knocked out Postal quicker than Lomachenko could have did going the distance. Why? That's all I'm saying. Why? But that's all I got tonight, y'all. I gotta bounce. I got some things to take care of. Y'all be sure to turn up and check me out on all social media platforms. I was kind of in a rush today. I have to take care of some stuff with the son. But I appreciate everyone for tuning in. I I just returned from a fight card in Tunica, Mississippi. First time I was up there in Tunica. It was a very solid fight card. Shout out to John Owens and the crew, Street of Twin Promotions, Brian Young, the promoter. It was a good time over there. Regional card had five fights on it. Just a regional card. Very entertaining fight card. It was in the casinos. A different freaking um environment to say the least. Mississippi is different. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna lie, it's different. But subscribe to the YouTube channel. I appreciate it. And follow me on Instagram, and I'll be posting the pics from that regional fight card, and definitely let you all know when the next big one is on deck. Definitely with Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. They have impressors. I'm gonna like the mentality that Deontay Wilder's been given, the energy, calm, cool, collective, silent but deadly. He's ready. He ain't doing all too much talking for this fight camp and press conference. He ain't exhausting all his energy to entertain Fury. And then in closing, Anthony Joshua, once again, people believe me. Like, I just had an interview with Timothy Moulton, one of the sparring partners of Anthony Joshua, in preparation for Andy Ruiz rematch. Good guy, sound dude. Look, it's not a UK US type of deal. I don't dog out UK fighters just because Anthony Joshua is the one that I believe is overrated. You know what I'm saying? Because I'll watch Tyson Fury fight before I watch Anthony Joshua fight. 7 out of 7. You know what I'm saying? Because I just don't find Anthony Joshua that entertaining. But recently, it's coming back to the surface like oil do the water. You know what I'm saying? And once again, you understand why Deontay Wilder is not really entertaining Eddie Hearns and them and taking them serious, because it's always a deterrent for every other fighter. Now, you want to just ignore and dilute the man's performances in the ring, his accolades. You don't want to give him no credit. The man is going on his 11th defense of the WB title. Anthony Joshua just went through a stint where he lost his titles and regained them. To say you rate 70 and he rate 30 is just another deterrent from Anthony Joshua, who was clout chasing. He was calling Deontay out. I want to fight. I want to fight. Hey, Tyson Fury, I'll help you train for Deontay Wilder. Anything to get his name to be relevant. This is just another set to his piece. He want media to talk about the 70-30, which they're doing. Call me what you want. But it's just some fighters that say things. I won't even hop on him. I'll let every other media outlet do it. Because it's the same thing. Like Anthony Joshua Nance talking about he deserves 70-30. He want to go to Eddie Hearns and say, why does Deontay deserves 50-50? Why doesn't he not? He's being fair. Like, how will you downplay a loss on your record and then you just criticize the entire body of work that Deontay Wilder has earned in his career? You an Olympian, he's an Olympian. For those of you that seen the gold medal match, it's not for me to talk about right now. I'm just going to ask you to go take a look at it. Look at Anthony Joshua gold medal match. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel World Combat Sports, because I'm not making this up. They manufactured Anthony Joshua to rise up over there in the UK. And it just happened to present itself in a much better light when Tyson Fury got in trouble. While Tyson Fury was out the sport, the rise of Anthony Joshua commenced. You know what I'm saying? Why would you say you deserve 70% and he deserves 30? You keep trying to say, I want to starve this man. I don't respect him. And you know what's crazy? It's only going to make it worse for him if they ever meet face to face in the next 2 years. Deontay Wilder's power is something that can never be taught in a gym. I don't care how many weights you pick up. I don't care what type of exercises. He's innately gifted with a power, with a strength, almost like immortality. If someone's able to hit you with the palm of their hand and put you into an unconscious state, the way he does it, it's a problem. And Anthony Joshua know damn well that his chin cannot handle. He's not going to be able to go in there and land a jab on Deontay Wilder like he was doing with Snickerbottom. Deontay's came in there like 209. He's came in there with the lower weight just outside of cruiserweight. And you think he's going to balloon up like Jarrell Miller? You think he's going to come in there all of a sudden and say, I need to bulk up to 235 just to face Anthony Joshua when I'm knocking cats out under 215? Anthony Joshua need to stop with his 70-30, man. He's just being a diva right now. I can't get behind a fighter who already, I believe, the chin suspect and his boxing skills are a bit rudimentary, right? I do believe he has some growth to do. I remember when a lot of people, when he was undefeated, they were saying, oh man, he's the more technically sound. Maybe so. You know, a lot of robots look technically sound. He looked like a robot to me. While Deontay Wilder, when he got his opponent hurt, yeah, he would give you a wild looping shot. But how did he get his opponent hurt? He had to deliver and execute the right punch to set all that up. It's not just the right hand of power. It's more to the delivery. It's a fight IQ. Everything meshed together to land a good shot, the power shot, the scoring shot, the effective shot, whatever you want to call it, the punch that lands and do damage to his opponent. You can't say, well, all the opponents that he hurt, they wasn't nobody special. You can't say that. I'm hearing this too much on social media. So for Anthony Joshua, man, we're gonna see if you come to your senses and stop being a diva, you know, prima donna, man. Just take 50-50, have a fight in a neutral location. You know, you're making yourself look crazy saying, oh, we want it in the UK. No, man, have the damn fight in a neutral location. And stop looking for the referees to be in place so you can feel confident that you can rip tape off your glove and not be penalized. And you can take your own time out, spit your gum shield out on the freaking deck and waste time when you're tired. Forget all that. Dion said, what do you think about the $200 million site fee? Hey, that's Saudi. That's Saudi. They trying to do different things over there, man. Look, they the one chose to go over there in the sands. Them guys over there that has that liquid money, they ain't stupid. They're not stupid. They know what they're doing. And you know, for them to have such a high site fee like that, when the point of Eddie Hearns and them going over there was it's supposed to have been a neutral location, but we all know it caters, you know, that's like an ally to the UK, right? So for them to even believe to put a 200 million ticket up on a site fee, how are you expecting anyone? I'm talking about anyone irrelevant like Deontay Wilder and his team, Shelly Finkel, JD's. Why would you even believe that they're uneducated or inexperienced enough to say, let's go over to Saudi? Do you believe Deontay Wilder will want to go all the way over there and deprive the U.S. fans of seeing this unification bout? One face, one name, one champ. Do you believe that he will cater to Anthony Joshua? And in a lot of words, he did that in 2018. They catered to Eddie Hearns and Anthony Joshua and then still got nothing in the end. So this time around, Anthony Joshua is still being an antagonist. He's still pretending like he wants to face Deontay Wilder when he's in a fight, a scheduled bout, February 22nd. So he want to clout chase and use his name and say, Tyson Fury, I'll help you train, you know, just to get his name out here, man. That's all Anthony Joshua's doing. Eddie Hearn say 50-50, and then all of a sudden, Anthony Joshua is allowed permission to question Sir Eddie Hearns. Oh shit. That's funny. That seemed rehearsed to me. Seriously. That seems premeditated. It seems disingenuous. Anthony Joshua is questioning Eddie Hearns when it comes to money. Eddie say 50-50. Joshua say no, 70-30. Why do Deontay Wilder deserves 50-50? What's up with this D word again? Deserve. The way you looked when you was defeated by Andy Ruiz and the way you look when you regain the titles, man, come on. Don't you dare use that word deserve. I'm out. Thank you for tuning in to World Combat Sports.